embarrass me. That might humiliate me. That might risk my reputation. That's often a mindset that holds us back from being creative, from taking risks, from trying new things. I worked with someone a few years ago, and it was really interesting because his assistant came to him and said, everyone, like the exec that I was working with as a client, he'd been working late nights, every single night, in the office. And his assistant came to him and said, by the way, just so you know, everyone is so scared of you that even though they've finished their work and completed what they need to do and taken on more, they just wait till you leave and walk out the door before they go home. And his assistant was saying that people are so fearful of you that they can't even be honest with you at this point. And they're not scared of you because you have so much authority or that you're mean to them or you're rude. They're just scared because you've set such a high standard for yourself. But some of them want to get back to their young families. Some of them, they've just started something on the side. They're trying to figure it out. They're trying to work it out. And his first response was, but the numbers are good, right? And his assistant was like, yeah, numbers are good. So he was like, leave it with me. We were talking, working together. The next week, on Monday, he left at 6 p.m. on the dot. He packed his bags, switched off his computer, went downstairs. They saw him pull out his car, walked around, everyone was peering out the window. And as soon as they saw his car drive off, everyone packed up and left. He did this every single day for the next month. He left at 6 p.m. on the dot, everyone would watch his car disappear, and then they'd leave as well. A month later, his assistant came back to him and said, it's good to see you leave early, but I'm a bit confused. And he said, what are you confused about? His assistant said, you've stayed on top of everything. Like, you've got all your work done. Like, you haven't missed a beat, even though you've been leaving like 2 to 3 hours earlier than usual, but you haven't missed a beat. And he said, well, what I've been doing is I'm leaving at 6 p.m., driving around the block for half an hour, taking a work call, coming back to the office and finishing my work. And the assistant said, well, why didn't you just tell everyone that they could leave at 6 or that it was okay, or that, if that's the culture you wanted to set? And he said, well, if I told them, they might not believe me right now. As he said, if there was a sudden change in my demeanor and appearance, and I was telling them it was all okay, they might not believe me right now. And he said, I don't mind if I'm seen as someone who works really hard. I just don't want to have to change my perception amongst them. I don't need them to think of me differently to live better lives as stage one. Stage one is I just want them to get home to their families, set their priorities. Stage two is we'll figure out how they understand how I've been thinking about this, but I don't want to care about how I look to them right now. And I thought that this was a really fascinating point. Of course, there's so many things to extrapolate from this example, but the idea that often we try and change our perception before we make progress. We want people to view us differently more than doing the right thing. We want to be viewed as innovative more than make time to be innovative. We want to be viewed a certain way before we actually make that change and make that difference. And what I found over and over and over again is smart people are not wasting their time trying to figure out their perception or how they're viewed. They're trying to figure out how they can still create an impact. And within that, figure it out. So today I want you to reflect on what risk would you be willing to take? What new thing would you be willing to give a go if you weren't scared about how people viewed it? What might you do? What might you be open to? And I don't want you to do it, I just want you to consider it. What is it that you would open up to if you didn't have the limit of worrying about other people's opinions? And the final story I want to tell you, the final mindset, is not what will people think, but it's we've always done it that way. It's always worked that way. That makes sense. It's always been this way and we've been doing okay and it will probably last for another 10 years. This mindset has caused so many challenges. A couple of years ago, interviewed the co-founder of a company, and he said that at one point his company was in something like $57 million of debt, and they were trying to be acquired by a bigger company. His company was small, there was in a lot of debt, they didn't know where the business was going, and they were willing to sell the company even for like $50 million just to pay off most of their debt and then figure it out. When they met the CEO of this big company, the CEO wasn't interested. He didn't see their company as being the future. Supposedly, the bigger CEO had the opportunity to buy this little company around 3 times and decided not to. The small company, the co-founder that I was speaking to, was Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix. And the big company was Blockbuster. And when Mark told me this story on my podcast, he was just like, we were desperate for them to buy us. It wasn't even like we went in there like we thought we were anything. He just goes, we were desperate. We just wanted them to take our debt off our hands, and we thought we'd work inside this bigger company. The idea was, oh no, we've always done it this way. This would always be the way that will work. There's so many examples of stories like that. And so this last example I'm going to give you is something that I want you to pay a lot of attention to. At Stanford, one of the professors came and gave the class an assignment. The assignment was, I'm going to give you $5, and you have 2 hours to make as much money as you can. And then afterwards, you're going to get a 3-minute presentation to explain what you did and why you did it and how much money you made. So all of the students went off. The first set of students, they built lemonade stands. They spent the $5 buying some lemonade, buying some cups, built a little stand, built a little sign, and started selling lemonade for like $1 a cup. How many are you going to sell? Another group spent the $5 on a bucket, a sponge, and washing liquid, and started doing a car wash. How many cars are you going to wash with 1 bucket and 1 sponge? They didn't win either. Now another group realized that the $5 was just a distraction. They were like, well, we have $5 in 2 hours, so it doesn't matter what we do with the $5. We have 2 hours to make as much money as we can. So they said, you know what, let's make reservations at all the top restaurants in the area and sell them to companies close by who need those reservations for dinners, meetings, events, whatever it may be. So they did that. They realized the $5 was just a distraction, but the 2 hours was exactly what they needed to work on. And they made a lot more money. But they still didn't win. There was one more group that realized something that all the other groups didn't realize. There was only one in the whole class. They realized that not only was the $5 a distraction, they realized that the 2 hours was majority a distraction as well. They realized that the most valuable thing they had was a 3-minute presentation in front of a group of Stanford to-be grads. They sold that 3 minutes to a company that wanted to hire Stanford graduates. And they sold it for $650, and they won the entire competition.